Once you are familiar with the basic data types integer, character, and boolean, I feel the next step to learning how to program is functions. The easiest way I can describe functions is to pose a problem, and a function will be the solution. Okay, so you see here I've written out a little bit of code already to save us some time. We have an initial character C and an initial number. What our program is set up to do is to read a character from input from the user, us, set the number equal to that character, and then output it. And this is just to show a little example real quick. So if we run this, it'll compile. And here you can see it's actually sitting there waiting for us to input something. So say we input the number 6 and hit enter, and it'll output 54. Why does this happen? It's because the actual number 6 and the integer, well, 6, the character, is not 6, the integer. If you remember from the last lection, the character A is an integer value of 97, I think, maybe? High 90s, mid 90s, not important exactly for the example. So you can see how this would cause a little bit of a problem, though. If you have an input from the user and you want to use it in a calculation of some sort, obviously you want it to be the proper input. So the way I will solve this is to create what is known as a functions. A lot of functions can be implemented pretty much in their own files or in the main CPP file that we are currently programming. The small caveat is if you are adding it to the main CPP file, it has to be before it's used in any declarations, which skipping over that. Basically, it just has to be before you use it, which sounds kind of complicated, but I'll probably get into that hopefully in another episode. So functions, very interesting. Starting out, functions have 3 basic components, I'd say. They all have a return type. In this case, our return type will be an integer. They have a name, normally descriptive of what the function actually does. So in this case, it's convert jar to int, which is a lot longer than some of the functions that you will find, but it's descriptive nonetheless. And the third part is parameters. The parameters are normally go into these little parentheses that follow the function name. I call them parameters. They are also known as arguments. Just a little semantic little reason there, as long as you get the basic point. Basically, the parameters / arguments are the input of the function. So in this particular case, excuse me, we are going to input a character, and we will name this character input C. Functions have to be followed by their own brackets, and that's just sort of so that you know exactly where the code begins and ends. It begins technically right here with its name, but the actual what we begin to code begins with the open bracket and ends with the close bracket. As I said, it has this little part right here is the return type. It can either be a specific basic data type or your own data type that a data type of your own creation rather. And I'll cover creating your own data type in maybe the next episode, maybe the next episode after that. We'll see how we'll see which direction we go. Basically, starting off is whatever return type you have, you actually have to physically state that you are returning it. What are we going to return? We'll leave it as a comment for now. It's going to be some integer value. Oh, I almost forgot because a bad habit of mine that you should avoid getting into actually if you're going to start programming is whenever you define a function, you're always going to include what's called the precondition and the postcondition, which are not, I don't know, to put it simply, it's basically what are you inputting and what are you outputting. The precondition in this case is C is some character that represents an integer, 1, 2, 3, 4, dot dot dot, you know, includes 1 through 9 and then also the 0 character. I will cover how you convert multiple characters into value, and probably a later excuse me again, I'm a little sick, but I will cover that in a later video. For now, for the purposes of functions, it's just going to be a single digit integer. So cover that. Postcondition, we are going to return integer value represented by the character, not that the. You always want to be clear, because if you just say return integer value of the character, that could be the same as basically saying that whole 6 is 54 type of a situation. It's obviously that's not what we want to do. So we are going to declare another little integer. We'll call it this, just int a. It's what we are going to end up returning. An important caveat to note is pretty much everything that you do within a function. Oh wait, I drew a little diagram. Okay, so whenever you have your main program, you're going to have what's called the function call, and it's basically just the little method that calls your program. Pretty self-descriptive name. And then your compiler will say, okay, go to wherever that function is defined and use it. And whatever is done within this function gets thrown away basically as soon as you return it. The only thing that's kept is a little return value that goes back into your main program, which is really useful if you're trying to save on memory and program speed. I guess you'd say program speed, but it's really just sort of, I don't know. So what's in here is going to get thrown away whenever at this return statement. Everything we do beforehand basically is what I was trying to get to. Which it can be a good thing, it can be a bad thing if you don't want it to do that. In future videos I will show you several ways, actually probably, on how you can save what you do within a function and use it later on in the program. But for the purpose of this video, it's just everything that is within these two brackets will get thrown away except for this little value, which will be inserted whenever we call the function. So now that we have covered that tangent, we will get back to actually making the function. Okay, so we have some integer a, and we are going to return it, semicolon. But so the value of our little character is actually going to be C minus the 0 character. How do I know this? If you look at a table of ASCII characters, again, I should probably have saved one up for better examples. I know Wikipedia has one that's pretty useful actually. But the ASCII characters go in order, so that you know 6 is 54, so the character 7 will be 55. And since you know that order, any character you give it minus 0 will end up with the actual character value, which sounds a little awkward, but okay. So down here, instead of saying number equals C, we'll instead say number equals convert char to int C. You'll notice we don't explicitly state the data type of C. You only do that as the argument of the function. You don't do that whenever you actually use the argument. This here, if you go back to, you remember this drawing, that is the function call in the main program that we are using. Excuse me again. So if you run this program, what's going to happen? It's going to load up. I'll give it a few seconds. It's going to wait here for our input. Our input will be 3. Hit enter, and it returns 3. Yay! Not very impressive, but it's normally functions can be really, really complicated, or they can be really simple. It really depends on the application you're programming and what you want the function to do. So that will be the end of this lesson, I guess. Moving on, our next lesson will cover structs, I think, which are kind of cool in and of themselves, and build upon this function lesson. I will probably try to post that later on tonight. No promises, though. Have a good one.